Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of N.P.H. Live Photography Conversations. My name is Tunde, and today we have a very special guest. You may know him from Twitter. You may know him as a certified chef. But you and me, we know him as food and portrait photographer Fasanmi Afolabi, better known as Fola Stag. He'll be sharing his story, tips, and experiences as a top food and portrait photographer in Nigeria. So Fola, if you are here, I believe you are here, please request to join this live.
My name is Fasanmi Afolabi, popularly known as Fola Stag. I am a commercial food, portrait, and advertising photographer. And I'm also a chef. I love making food. I love the process of eating. I love the process of making food. I love the smell of food. So yes, anything that has to do with food, I'm crazy about food. That has driven my passion to food photography. That has really inspired me to create a lot of food images and collaborate with other chefs as well.
So let's take it back to the beginning. Okay, like this. When you entered Babcock University in Ogun State, Nigeria in 2010 to study business administration, did you ever think that one day you would become a photographer?
To an extent, I'll say yes. And also to an extent, I'll be like, maybe not. Because, one of those choices you make not by yourself, but by your parents. Those choices that are made by your parents where, okay, you want to study one thing and they're like, no, you have to study this one so that you can become that one. So, at first I wanted to do theater arts. Even though I've always enjoyed visual arts, I wanted to create, I wanted to draw, I wanted to take pictures. But then I didn't have access to a lot of these things. And my father was like, okay, you know what, you're just going to do accounting. And I'm like, accounting, God forbid. So I ended up doing business administration. And along the line, I started making friends, and then I met a few people who had the same visual knack with me. And then I started collaborating with them, started borrowing cameras, and up to the point that I had to, get a camera for myself. So to an extent, I'll say, I saw it coming, and to an extent, I'll say, no, I didn't expect it to happen.
So your answer is more like in the middle.
Yes, right? Yes. It's more like in the middle.
So in the, we're not sure whether it's in the first or second year, but at some point between that time when you were in university, you came across the Mayo Photography's work, right? And so can you tell us who he is and the role he played in the beginning of your career?
Oh, yeah. So because at that time, because I got my camera in 2013, and then at that time, I think at first I didn't even know it was a Babcock student, But then I saw an image of, I think, a conductor online where the sky was really blue, the yellow bus was really yellow. And I'm like, how did this person get this image? What's inspired these colors? How did he get all of this? So I started practicing myself. And then up until the time I found out he was a Babcock student. And as at that time, he was the photographer for Babcock. He was the official photographer for Babcock. And I'm like, oh, so that's him. And afterwards I reached out to him a few times that, okay, I would like to work with him and all of that. So I ended up getting the opportunity much later, not even when I was in school. So he was basically one of my mentors back then, aside Kelechi Amadiobi and a lot of other people.
How did you feel going from seeing his work to not only seeing his work, but working with him at a certain point?
How did I say it? It was kind of an invisible transition, so to say. I don't know how to explain it. When you just sink into something and it feels like it's supposed to happen. And it just goes, seamlessly. So, that was it. I'm like, okay, here we are. And I tried to make sure I enjoyed every bit of it, learn all that I could learn and, ask questions when need be. Sometimes all I just have to do is watch. And yeah, basically that.
Mhm. Now, you mentioned earlier that you got your first camera 2014, right?
2013.
2013, right?
Yeah.
And what is that camera? We might know it, but we want to ask you.
Oh yeah, it was a camera, Nikon D60. D60. It's a really small camera. It's a really small camera. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, was there any reason why you chose that particular camera?
I mean, I was less educated about photography. Yeah, I barely knew anything about it. But because I was learning online, I was just reading up random things. Oh, why does this camera work different from this one? Why should I buy this one? And also, what affected that was my budget. I think my budget for camera back then was 50,000 naira. And yeah, I went to the market and like, give me a camera that is 50,000 naira. And then I said, okay. They said, oh yeah, this is the one that will fit your budget. And I'm like, okay, yeah, give it to me. I'll shoot with it. And that was it.
Mm-hmm. So in today's 2022, is that still a camera that you would recommend to an entry-level photographer?
Nope, not at all. Huge.
Why?
Nah. Because the way things were back then is not the way it is now. There's a whole lot more to capture. There's a whole lot more to frame and all of that. So I don't think I'll advise anybody who wants to fly to get that kind of camera now because it has a lot of restrictions. Yeah, it will do the job, but it will not give you the groundbreaking effects that you probably need. You understand? Okay, maybe for a tourist, yes. And even as a tourist, I think I still will not advise you. But then, if you want to take photography professionally, I won't advise you to get that kind of camera.
And you still wouldn't advise even if the person is on a budget?
If you're on a budget now. Because now, I think the camera is even out of market now. I think Nikon stopped making them. So yeah, the chances are you won't even find it. I'm just saying. You probably know some Lungu where you can go and find the camera, but the chances of you getting it is very low.
So is there any particular camera that you would recommend as an entry-level photographer on a budget?
Yeah, so on a budget is relative, yeah. Somebody could say, oh, I'm on a budget and their budget is 500K. Somebody could say I'm on a budget and the budget is 120K. So it really depends on what your budget is precisely. That is what would determine that.
Let's say the same budget that you had in the past, 50,000.
That will buy you only a memory card now. Memory card and maybe, in fact, can that even get you a Nikon battery now? Maybe one camera battery and a memory card. Maybe you can fly with that.
And get the camera later, but sure.
Yeah. Starting small.
Makes sense. Something small, very small, almost non-existent.
Yeah, very small.
So we talked about the first year or second year when you saw DeMaio's work. So let's talk about your final year of university, right? I want to ask you, is it true that you won a 200,000 naira grant from a business plan that you wrote?
Yeah, that's true. So because I did business administration, although I didn't like it back then, I wasn't enjoying any bit of that course. But then one time, during vacations, when you just find yourself reading random books and all of that. So I found this book I was reading and they were asking some questions about what's your big plan, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan, how much do you have right now? So I just started answering all of those questions. And when I saw the adverts for the grants, And they said, oh, you need a business plan. At first, I was like, business plan. Come on, I hate anything that has to do with business. And then I went online and searched the meaning of business plan. How can I construct one by myself? And apparently, all the questions I had answered in the book I was reading was all I needed for a business plan. So I'm like, that is it. It's ready. So I just submitted it. And I was surprised when they said, when I got the call and they said, you got the 200,000 naira grant. I'm like, what? Stop! So ever since, I've been challenging myself to, read more books, enlighten myself in different spaces, and always go online. In fact, I'll find myself reading some of the most ridiculous articles at times, and then on one random day to just come in handy.
Like, so if you read something maybe last week, something will happen in the present, and you'll be like, wait,
something like that.
So definitely. So for a photographer that's never created a business plan, like what are some elements, or what are some key elements of a business plan?
The key elements, first of all, I think passion, because passion is what will drive you. Passion is what will drive you to, research and learn on what you want to do precisely. Do you understand? So, aside passion, have a goal, have a clear goal, have a niche. Understand that, okay, yes, I want to be a photographer, but what kind of photographer do I want to become? Do I want to become a property photographer? Do I want to become a food photographer? Do I want to become an event photographer? So, having a clear goal, having a clear plan, having a niche in whatever you're doing is very important. And also, try to break down your plans. Okay, in 2 years, I want to make sure I have 10 interns. In 2 years, I want to make sure I have 100 interns. In 2 years, I want to be on the cover of Forbes list. So all those things are the things that will make up your business plan to an extent. What else? Understanding the kind of
specific questions?
Okay, understanding the kind of equipment you need. Because if you don't have any idea what kind of equipment you need, you'll just probably be beating around the bush. So understanding the kind of equipment you need, what equipment will cost, and all of that, those are the things that will help you build a proper business plan.
Do you have any specific questions on the plan? Maybe like on the plan that you made, were there any specific questions on that particular plan?
I can't really remember that particular one because there are others that have come after it. But some of the questions were, what do you do? What's your big idea? How do you intend to execute it? Who are your competitors? How much do you need? Why do you need it? Yeah, basically those kind of questions.
Makes sense. Now, in your opinion, does an upcoming photographer have to make a business plan, or is it optional?
Like I said, having a goal is very important. So, because I've met upcoming photographers who end up quitting photography. Do you understand? So, it depends on your goal. For some other people, photography could just be like their stepping stone to other plans that they have. Do you understand? So, they probably will have a business plan for that, but not for photography. I don't know if that makes sense. But then I feel like at the end of the day, even if you don't call it a business plan, have like a plan. Do you understand? Have like a guideline. Ask questions. Have like a guideline to put you through all the things you need. And in the process of practicing and working, you'll be able to expand it. So I feel like having a plan is what is important, even if it is not a business plan, so to say.
Now, you mentioned something earlier about finding a niche, right? Because we wanted to know, like, what are your thoughts on finding a niche? Like, do you have to? Or can I take a wedding job, portrait jobs, food jobs, or do I have to stick to one specific thing to succeed as a photographer?
Okay, so on finding a niche, before I even, resulted for my niche as a food photographer, I have practiced portraits. I still do portraits, all right. I still do events. I still do, what else? Products. But because I don't want to confuse my audience, because confusing your audience will just make things, go hula baloo. When people talk about you, or when people mention your name somewhere, let them know what they mentioned your name for. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Let them know. I believe if my name is mentioned anywhere now, people will be like, oh, food photographer, all right? Then they can say, okay, yeah, he does portraits as well. He does, yeah, portrait is also a strong point for me. But then because I don't want to confuse my audience, and I advise a lot of people not to confuse their audience. Make sure your audience understands why they will come to you, what they are coming to you for. Yeah. So that's why it is essential to also have a niche.
Mm-hmm. And so, would you advise that, let's say someone's doing, portraits and weddings, would you advise they have two separate pages, or just put everything on one, or stick to one thing?
So on that, if it is social media, I honestly don't even know how to go about it sometimes, because that's why I have one page. Yeah. So all I try to do is I try to segment everything, by the way I post, by the way I put up my post. That okay, on some days I could post portraits on a straight line, on some days I could post. So on separate pages, if it works for you, if you can multitask, if you can keep up with both pages, that's fine. But for me, I feel like it might be a bit confusing for me myself to, track two pages. So I'd rather just stay with one and try to make sure I organize it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So this is an interesting one, right? So now, while you were trying to find your niche, you got a job with the governor of Bayelsa State in October 2019 during their election period. So, Fola, what's the story behind that particular job?
So a friend posted the job and asked if anybody was interested. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds like an interesting one. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's give it a try. And it was during the election. So they needed a photographer to, photograph the whole process and all of that. So I went to Bayelsa and I started doing the job. But then something just felt off. Something just felt off in that moment. Maybe because that wasn't something I wanted to do per se. Yeah, there was bigger perspective from it. All right. After the whole election, I was supposed to be the official photographer for the governor back then and all of that. But then it wasn't just giving me that thing I wanted. So I just had to say, okay, you know what? I'm going back home. I can't do it. And the stress during that period was a whole lot. My eyes saw shaggy in just how many days? I think for like a week. I quit the job after a week. Nah, man, I can't do it.
Jeez. So can you give us a description of some of that shaggy that you experienced?
So some of it was that because we had to touch some of the deep places in Bayelsa, we could leave the mainland in Bayelsa, let's say 7 a.m. And then some of the places we were going were like 6 hours away. Maybe 2 hours by road and 4 hours on water. Yeah, so we'll have to travel by boat, land, and get to a point, and then we'll all board a boat, and then, I'm like, So one time, it was a convoy of boats, and like, let's say 3 hours into the journey, our driver looked back at us and was like, well, I thought so, they go again. Apparently, we were like, we were lost on water, basically. So we're all like, what? So we've just been going for almost 3 hours and you don't know where we're going. And luckily we saw this old woman on the boat. And it wasn't just water. You know, Lagos water now, when you're on Lagos water, you can still see houses on the left and houses on the right. And this one was thick bush, serious thick bush, like something you see in Nigel Wild. That anaconda could come out, and my head was already thinking like, hey, who sent me make I come collect this kind of job? And also the security was another thing, because I was hearing stories of, oh, somebody was shot during the rally, this one was shot during the rally. Like, I am very, very far from home. I would not like to be shot in another man's land. So I would rather just go back to my Lagos where, yeah, it is crazy, but then it's still controlled. So that was one of the major reasons why. That was one of the troubles my eyes saw. And I said, nah, man, I can't do it. I went back home.
And do you ever regret or see as a regret not becoming the official photographer of the governor? Because the money you would have gotten would have been crazy.
Well,
is that
not one bit of regret? I do not regret it in any way.
Makes sense. Now, there's one thing you definitely don't regret, right? So 1 month after that, October 2019, on November 19th, 2019, something amazing happened on Twitter that changed the direction of your photography career. So can you tell the people watching and listening what exactly happened on that fateful day?
Because I enjoyed cooking so much, normally I would shoot my food pictures with my phone, all right, and post. But that particular day, I was just like, okay, you know what, let me just go one step further. Let me shoot this food with my camera. And then I did that, and the reactions were crazy. Like, not just the Nigerian audience. I got messages from India, I got messages from France, and all of that. And I'm like, on just this one picture. So I was like, okay, so if I have been doing this with my phone, and then doing this with my camera is getting me this kind of reaction, let's take it a step further. And then I just started shooting more food. I started practicing in the house. I started trying to collaborate with other chefs. And yeah, that was like a big break, so to say. And from that moment, everything changed.
Like you said, from that moment, everything changed. What exactly changed? How did your life change after that moment?
It changed in the sense that I found something different from what every other person would do. It felt more, what's that word called? It felt more exclusive, so to say. You know, and that industry is not as saturated as every other part of photography, or a lot of photography sections. So I was like, okay, yeah, let me hold on to this. And then a lot changed also in the sense that even with my cooking, I started reading more about food, how food react to light, how food react to heat, what color suits what food. So a lot changed. How I saw food, or how I see food now, is now different from how I used to see it back then. Maybe I just used to see food as food, but now I see food differently. So yeah, it's a different ball game now compared to when I was doing strictly portraits.
So obviously, if you didn't post those set of photos or that photo, would you think today you would be a food photographer?
Well, honestly, I probably would not think I'll be a food photographer. Because normally when people used to reach out before then for food photo, okay, I remember I shot food a few times. I remember when I used to work for a studio in Ikoyi, these clients brought food to the studio. Yeah, I could shoot it, but it wasn't interesting me at that moment like that. Do you understand? Until, you know, I did that particular one, and I'm like, oh, okay, crazy. So I can actually hold on to this. So yeah, honestly, I probably won't see myself becoming a food photographer. Sorry.
So once the images went viral, it obviously opened a lot of collaboration opportunities for you, right?
Yeah.
And so before it went viral, you were collaborating with someone very particular. His name is Joel Aldi.
Yeah.
Can you tell us who he is and how he's helped you grow as a photographer?
Oh yeah. So also around the time I met the mayor, we were also friends in school. Joe was assisting the mayor at that period. Yeah. And then after school, he was a food photographer, or he's a food photographer. And then after that whole period, okay, during the time I was working with what's his name, the mayor, I also was working with Joe. We were trying out. I was going to shoot with him, and anytime I was free, I'll just follow him for his shoots and all of that. I think those moments also would have what's it called, shed light on that particular part for me, because I am that kind of person that even if I don't ask questions, I'm learning. Do you understand? I also just want to look at something and just take it all in. And in that process, in that space, I think I have also what's that word called? Let me just use taking in a lot of experiences in that moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Joel was working with Demayo maybe as an intern, and then that's when you guys met.
Yeah. I think in school he was his intern, or they were just partners. Yeah. I wasn't really close to them, and I said earlier that I wasn't really so close to the mayor back in school, so I don't have a lot of details on that. But then I knew they were working together that period.
Okay, makes sense. And one thing Joel's probably talked to you about is probably like understanding your market, like especially as like a food photographer. Would that be true, or is something that you guys have spoken about?
Funny how we never really spoke about it. I don't think we ever really spoke about food photography like that. But yeah, if I had questions, I definitely used to ask him, oh, what do you think about this? And yeah, if I shoot sometimes, I'll be like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do differently? And all of that. So yeah, but we never really talked about it. But yeah, if I had questions, if I what's it called, shot some things, I'll just share with him, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think I should do differently? And if I saw him doing some things also, I'll ask, why are you doing that? And what is it supposed to do to your, what's it called, final image?
So we're talking about understanding your market. As a photographer, how does a photographer understand his market? Or how did you understand your market? We've seen you talk about it in the past. So essentially we're bringing it up.
Okay, so understanding your market means you have to research a lot. You have to test the market. You have to try your hands on different things. Understanding your market is having to have conversations with your clients, or with your clients, with your potential clients, and ask them, okay, if I do this, what do you think? Do you like this? You're understanding what they like. And if you have the strength to do what they like, then you can proceed. Do you understand? If you have the strength, if you have the equipment to do what they want, then you can proceed. So yeah, I feel like from conversations with your potential clients, research, and yeah, basically that is what will guide you.
Now, you said meeting with a potential client. So you have consultations as a food photographer?
So yeah, consultations. I don't think I'll probably call it consultations, or consultations. Basically asking questions. Let's say I get a brief now. You understand, and I feel like the client doesn't really understand what they want. That's where the concept of consultation comes in. Okay, what do you want the images to look like? How do you want them to look? What do you want to use them for? And with all of the answers I get, I'll be able to draw a guideline to what their outcome should look like. So yeah, I feel like that is what I'll call the consultation part.
Okay, sure. You're definitely on the move. But Should we wait until you get? You can hear me? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, cool. No, go. So let's talk about your favorite platform, Twitter. And so, right on Twitter, you once wrote that my friend shoots mainly food photography, and he's cashing out big time. So it's about knowing your target market and shooting your shot at them. So we wanted to ask, when shooting your shot at someone in your target market or audience, what exactly do you write and what exactly do you send?
Okay, so on that, so what do I write? I just basically introduce myself and what I do, and talk about their brand as well. Because before I even reach out to them, I've probably I would have done my own research and understand what they do as well. So I'll just have to educate them on, okay, let me come on board with you as so that I can help you do so and all of that. Because after understanding them, you can be able to pitch properly what you do for them.
This episode is sponsored by Bush Digital. Most likely, you've spent thousands on your camera. So why not protect it with a silicone case? For a limited time only, when you send the code N.P.H cases to Bush_Digital on Instagram, you'll get a 20% discount plus free delivery to any state in Nigeria when you purchase a silicone case.
Do you send your portfolio in a document? Do you send
your
website?
Yeah, I send my portfolio as a document as well to them.
And what does the typical Fola Stag pitch sound like? If you don't mind sharing.
I'm under tension right now, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'll be able to do that easily. But then it's just basically about introducing myself and what I do.
Okay, so it's like, hi, I'm Fola Stag. I like your brand. This is my work. Get back to me if you're interested. Do you ever come up with a big idea that said like maybe I can shoot this product in a certain way?
Exactly. Yes.
Sure. Makes sense. Now, we've heard before that one way that you definitely use one way that you shoot your shots is via LinkedIn, right? So we heard that you have very great LinkedIn strategy. Can you talk more about that?
So LinkedIn, how will I break this down? So LinkedIn is like a large market, where these brands have their companies and you're just walking through, all right? So if you enter somebody's profile, you're able to see who they work for and what they do and all of that. So that way you can tell, okay, this is what this person does. And when you click on the company the person works for, you can see other people they have worked, the other people that works for the same company. So that way you can look through their profiles. This is what they do. This is what so person does for so brand, and you are able to narrow down your search and know who exactly you should send what to. So yeah, that's usually how I use it.
Obviously, you use it as a food photographer, but as a portrait photographer, is it also useful? Right?
Yeah. It
Should
is
every
very,
photographer be using LinkedIn? Because I feel it's not spoken enough about. So we're giving you the opportunity to spread the word.
Yeah. I feel like even people who are not photographers can use LinkedIn, should use LinkedIn because that's like one of the major places to get in touch with the people you're looking for officially. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people should use it.
So like you said, like let's say you're trying to work for Coca-Cola. You go on LinkedIn, search for their communications manager, then you reach out to them with your pitch.
Yeah, basically.
And on average, how many pitches do you send out? Do you do one every other week?
As at the time I was desperate, looking for collaborations and all of that. I sent countless proposals. But now I try to streamline it in the sense that if I have an idea that syncs with a particular brand, I reach out to that brand and say, okay, I think this will be a great idea for us to work with, or this will be a great idea for us to collaborate on together.
Makes sense. Now, after you pitch the idea, they come on board. You now have to obviously charge them some money, some cash. And
Yes,
so now talking
exactly.
about price. Now let's talk about price. On Twitter, at some point you wrote or you put a question out there that says, why do photographers keep their pricing from each other? Like photographer A will be hiding how he charges from photographer B. So we wanted to ask, why do you think that's the case?
Honestly, I still can't answer that question. Or to an extent, I feel like it's a concept of protecting your interest, so to say. Do you understand? Because a lot of people feel like if I tell, let's say, a brand reaches out to me and they say, okay, I'll charge 10K, for instance, and then if somebody else knows that, okay, I charge 10K, they probably will cut down the price to 5K. So if the brand reaches out to them, they will say, oh, I charge 5K for this thing. And we know that somebody or these brands will probably go for, oh, it's cheaper. Only and only if they believe in your brand so much and your works, your outputs, that's when they will say, okay, we'll stick with you still. So I think that's one of the major reasons why photographers keep their costs or their price. So it's like a concept of backbiting, so to say.
Okay, makes sense. So in your opinion, how can photographers push past that mindset?
I don't even know, because I feel like I'm not even in the best position to talk about that. But then because at some point I realized that what is yours is yours. I mean, even if you tell everybody whatever, if they can't get what you have, they can't get it. Do you understand? So I've decided to be open as much as possible to whoever reaches out or whoever needs information, and educate as much people as I can on how I do it. If it suits you, yeah, fine. And if it doesn't, I mean, you can tweak it to whatever you want. So yeah, I've decided to keep mine open to an extent.
Makes sense. Now, with that being said, can you give us some insight on a typical Fola Stag food photography package, or or your packages in general? What does one look like for all the upcoming food photographers watching?
So that would depend. It's quite. What word will I use? It's quite. I don't know what word to use. So it's a bit tricky. Let me use the word tricky, because you have to understand what your clients want again. You have to understand what you want to use the images for. You have to. So all of these things are going to be in your consideration, or so to say that, okay, they want to shoot 9 foods and they want to use all the images for billboard, or they just want to use it for social media. So those are the things that would help you to narrow down your costs. Those are the things that would help you strengthen your costs.
Mm-hmm. And so you don't have like maybe like a PDF that you send to clients?
I do have that. So I send that to them, and it contains all of my prices. And in the document as well, it says that, okay, even if these are my basic prices, there are other factors that also affect the cost of the final cost, in terms of the cost of production. Sometimes they may need you to get the models as a photographer. They may need you to get the makeup artist, the location of the shoot and all of that. So yeah, those things are the things you have to look out for.
So on the PDF, is it just prices, or do you have plans and packages on the PDF? Without maybe even giving it the prices, what does like a plan or a package look like? What does it include?
So I usually do the day rate, or the let's say if I'm shooting food, per dish rate. So if I'm shooting portraits, I could charge per head or a do it. So it's usually, if it's portraits, it's usually per per outfit or the day rate. Depends on what they want to shoot, or if it's a commercial now. Yeah, that also would determine. Say, okay, I know if I'm shooting a commercial, I'll probably not use less than a day to shoot it. So, yeah, that's like some of the packages I have there. That's like a breakdown of what I have there.
Now, your packages and plans, did you reference it from someone else, or did the prices gradually grow from when you first started?
Yeah, the prices gradually grew. I didn't reach the point I am now just by reaching there. So it's a thing of strength. Do you understand? I started realizing my strength more, and I started building my equipment base as well. And because of the equipment I have, the outcome from yesterday is not the same outcome from today. There's a whole lot more. Do you understand? So as I grow in terms of my knowledge, I'm also growing in terms of my equipment, and I'm also growing in terms of workspace as well and deliverables.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned equipment, because we're about to ask, when you're doing a food photography shoot, what are some of your go-to lenses?
Some of my go-to lenses for food photography would be 90mm lens, 50mm lens, 100mm lens. So those would be like my go-to.
And those are prime lenses too.
Yes. They are prime lenses.
And so, in your opinion, why is it important to use prime lenses as a food photographer?
Well, is it important? I don't know how to answer. Yeah, because I don't even know how to answer. Because I feel like some people can still shoot with their kit lens or their zoom lens and get the same result. I don't know. But then it is what I'm comfortable working with. Do you understand? Because I understand how distortions work. I understand that if I use 50mm to shoot a flat lay, it will look a particular way. And if I use a 90mm to shoot a bottle, it will look a particular way. So understanding these things, like I said, understanding how they work differently is what really prompts me to use what kind of lens I use.
I think maybe the better question is more of like, what are the benefits of using a prime lens when shooting food photography?
Clarity. I think I would say clarity, basically.
And obviously depth of field, and I guess like
depth of field, distortions, and clarity, basically, and how they adapt light.
Now let's talk about, you said light, perfect too. Let's talk about lighting, right? Can you describe your light setup when you want to take an overhead shot? Because we see that on your page a lot.
Okay, so that would depend on how I want the final image to look. If I want it to look moody, if I want it to look like a sunny day, if I want it to look like a windy day. So those are some of the things that prompt me to position my light in a particular way I want it to be. So sometimes I may need to block the light from one angle to make it look a certain way. I could, open up the whole space so that more light can come in. So it depends on what kind of feel and output I am going for that will determine that.
Now, I guess the feel and output is obviously from your client brief, right? And what does like a typical brief sound like? Is it very simple? It's like, okay, make our food look nice, or is it more complex than that?
That is usually it. Make my food look nice. Make our food look nice. Make it sellable. Make it look attractive enough. Yeah, that's usually it. And understanding that a lot of brands don't want shadows in their food images because they feel like, why is that shadow there? Only if they ask for it. That the brief says it should look, dark on one side or bright on one side. But usually a lot of food brands don't want to see shadows in their images.
Now, you said like when people say, okay, make this sellable, like what goes through your mind? Okay, here's some food to make it sellable. As a food photographer, how do you complete that task, like make it sellable?
So first, I need to understand what kind of food they need to sell, and understand who they want to sell it to, how they want to sell it. So make it sellable. I think of, okay, if you want me to shoot jollof rice, I'm already thinking, is it a fine dining jollof rice? Is it the regular party jollof? Is it the village jollof? So all of these things come together, and that helps me to think, okay, what kind of background will I use? What kind of colors should I work with? What is the brand's color? How should I position the food? What kind of plate will they use? And all of that. So these things come hand in hand to help me determine what it should look like.
So, like, essentially, you have to make sure the framing of the food and the shot are correct.
Yeah. Yes, very important.
Can you talk more about like framing? Like a lot of your shots, like the background's a certain way. Like the food, maybe you have a burger here, you have a burger here. That's all planned out, honestly. Like, how do you write it out? Do you write it out before the shoot, or is it in the moment?
So a lot of times I sketch before I shoot, especially for personal projects. I draw like a sketch of what I have in my mind, and then go online. I try to see if there's anybody that has shot something similar to that, and I try to document all of that, and basically build my mood board through that. So yeah, that's what I do most times. I try to visualize a lot and break down the process, so that I won't just be dabbling into it when I start shooting. And that could be confusing a lot when you just set up and then you just start putting this one down. Now it will start looking clumsy, and then you get confused by yourself. And once you start getting confused, your clients also will be confused with you, or your audience will be confused as well.
And when things are confused, the bank transfer also gets confused as well.
Exactly.
So after shooting, obviously you have to edit. So I wanted to know, what are some do's and don'ts when editing a food photograph?
So what are the do's and don'ts? I honestly, I feel like it's relative, yeah. So for me now, I have the idea of, okay, I try to shoot or get whatever I want to get from like 80% when I'm shooting, and then afterwards I want to do maybe 15% editing or 10% editing. Do you understand? So that my images don't start looking fake, especially portraits. Do you understand? So I don't think there's a particular do's and don'ts. It's just basically your preference. And if your clients like your preference, they will always come back to you. Do you understand? So it's basically personal preference. Personal
now,
preference.
when I say do's and don'ts, maybe more of like you shoot a tomato or something red, but you don't want to make it too red. Or maybe even a person, you don't want to make a person look too pink. So maybe that would be like a don't. Maybe make the food look realistic, because you don't want to over edit.
I try not to over edit, and sometimes I don't even edit. Do you understand? So like I said, it is relative to your client. So your client can say, oh, that tomato, I want it to be red, shining red. And some will tell you, okay, I just want it to look minimal. Do you understand? So understanding your client's workspace or your client's deliverables is what will guide you to, edit and retouch to their taste.
Now, you said a retouch. Now, in food photography, do you retouch?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Like, can you talk more about that? Because some people will like wonder. Some people in their mind, retouching is only for portraits. But as a food photographer, you obviously retouch. Can you talk more about that?
So my retouching, thank you. My retouching is not all over the place, yeah. So let's say, for instance, I shoot burger. I know that the skin of the burger should look a certain way. If there's a lot of dimples on it, I probably need to remove those dimples so that I can look, smooth like McDonald's standard, if that is what I am going for. Yeah, so sometimes particles, sometimes stain here and there. Yeah, so you have to work on all of that, definitely, to get the outcome you
Is there
want.
any particular technique? Is that like frequency separation? Is that dodge and burn?
Usually that would be blemish removal, most likely,
Okay.
or clone tool. I work more with clone tool, blemish removals, and color adjustments, basically.
Because the reason why we asked you, because you shot some headphones from a while back. I think you
Yeah.
actually posted the video of you editing the photos. So you're
Yeah.
definitely using the clone stamp tool to clean up the image.
Yes. Because I noticed there were a lot of stains on it because we sprayed some things while we were shooting, and also because I needed to suspend the headphones with a fish line. It wasn't even a fish line per se. It was like it was like a copper wire. So I had to make sure I remove that so that the image can, the what's it called, the headset can look suspended. So I worked more with the clone stamp tool and the blemish removal.
And that particular shot was like a personal project, right?
Oh yeah,
was something
yeah,
you did for
it was a personal project. Yeah.
Can you, just before we go on, can you talk more about like what's the importance of doing personal projects as a photographer? Because some people just wait for clients to come and don't do anything.
If you're waiting for clients to come, when they come, you probably don't even know what to do. So the main purpose of personal project is also to constantly remind yourself of what you can do, constantly practice, constantly learn new techniques, constantly improve yourself. Because I mean, even generally in life, you have to practice one thing. If you want to know about it, well, you have to practice till you get to the point where you can say, okay, yeah, I think I am very good. And honestly, you can't reach that point because you think, oh yeah, I am very good, and then you see somebody else do it, and you're like, what? So yeah, if you don't practice, you will probably carry last. So it is. It's very
and we don't carry last.
Exactly.
Makes sense. And so, from let's talk from an upcoming photographer's standpoint. Let's say I'm an upcoming food photographer on a budget, a very low budget, right? And I can't afford the proper lights. Should I use my camera's inbuilt flash when taking photos, or just not take the photo?
Never. Well, if it works for you, that's fine. But for me, never.
Wow.
Like I said, to understand food, you have to actually understand food. There are some lightings that won't work for food at all. So if you are using your pop-up flash and you just throw it on your food is probably going to look flat and unattractive. That I can assure you. Do you understand? So pop-up flash is never a go-to for me because even portraits, pop-up flashes don't pop the images.
Definitely. And so talk about lighting. Can you talk about like the uses of like soft lighting and hard lighting in food photography?
So if you remember, I mentioned earlier that usually when I'm lighting my image, it depends on what kind of output I want it to look like or the deliverables. So if I'm going to shoot in the studio and make it look like I shot it outdoor, I'll probably use hard lights with no diffusions. And if I want it to look like a windy day, I'll probably use like a large diffusion, something really soft to shoot it. Like I said, it's still based on your output. It depends. It's still based on your goal at the end of the shoot. That's what will determine what kind of light you should use.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing you said was like output, was actually our next topic, because in the past you've said that as a creative, we not only have to be consistent, but positively consistent. And so we wanted to know, what do you mean by that statement?
Oh, I didn't get that. Sorry.
Okay, sure. Let me start from the beginning. So basically you said about like working on the process essentially. So you said like in the past, you said that you not only have to be consistent, but
Why does the network
positively.
keep breaking when you start saying it? Hold on, go over it again.
I don't know.
Okay, just try. Let's try one more time.
Okay, sure. So it's like this. So you said you not only have to be consistent, but positively consistent. So we wanted to know, what do you mean by that?
Oh yeah. If you're referring to some of my tweets are just my tweets, and
No.
in that moment, it's
This is a
probably
video.
I probably put that out based on how I was feeling. But I think I can understand why I said that, because you can be consistent, with your content. But is your content positive? Is it great? Are you improving on it? Do you understand? And also your mindset of creating it. Are you in a positive space? Are you doing it because you just want to do it, or you're doing it to be better at yourself? Do you understand? So I think that's what I meant by that one.
Makes sense. And now we're almost like wrapping up things, but it's going to ask you like interesting questions like this. So we know Fola, the chef. We know Fola, the food photographer. But when are you going to create a page for Fola, the actor and comedian?
So, like I said, I'm not sure I can undo different pages at different times. And so even if I'm going to do that, I'll have to probably get extra hands to help me, undo this page, and extra hands to undo that page. So on my bio, that's why I have it that chef, photographer, and comic relief. So if you come to my page, know what you're expecting. You're coming to laugh. You're coming to look at food. And I mean, even of recent, I've not been doing a lot of, funny videos like I used to. So, I don't think I want to separate all of that, because those are the things that make up who I am. So I don't think I'll negate them at all.
And so, what are your plans with the acting and comedic side of your career?
I am looking to, build some or create some content, and also get movie roles as much as possible. But right now, that is not what I have on my table. I'm trying to create a different, kind of content. So I'm trying to give everything space and time, so to say. So I'm trying to draw like a plan that, okay, by the end of so year, I should have created enough content for this particular side, and then I can be able to create more content for this side. So I'm trying not to confuse everything. I'm trying to, give everything space to build.
Makes sense. And so, like, another random question is like, what's the story behind your name, Fola Stag? How did that even come about?
So when I started, I wanted something abstract. I'll get something out of place. And because I liked the animal stag, a male deer, I picked up the name, and I was like, okay, stag sounds catchy, sounds straight to the point, but then it is not customized for me. And one of the things in branding is you have to be able to customize it to an extent. Well, that's kind of branding for me. So I said, okay, let me just throw in my first name and then, combine it together, Fola Stag. So it was kind of easy to work with.
Okay, so that's how the name kind of came about. Because I wasn't sure whether that was like your actual surname.
No. It's not. No. Stag is in my surname. Stag is not my surname.
Sure. And before we go, I just want to ask you a couple of things. Like, for example, like when you were coming up as a photographer, did you ever deal with like comparing yourself to other photographers ahead of you? And if you did, like, how did you deal with that?
So that comparing yourself with photographers ahead is not just even photographers ahead, even some photographers below. Or sorry, allow me to use that word. Some photographers, I think, maybe this person shouldn't be as I don't know what word to use, but then it's kind of in the human nature to an extent to look at yourself and look at other people and be like, where am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I moving forward or am I stagnant? So yeah, I do it, and luckily I have a few friends I can share with and say, okay, look at this person and look at me. What do you think I should do differently? And sometimes it is even my clients. I say, oh, look at this person and look at what I'm doing. Do you think I should do it differently? Or it could be somebody random, in fact. So yeah, comparing is great, but living on that or establishing on that, comparing yourself to others is what probably will break you down and mess up your process. Because in as much as you are comparing yourself, you have to still understand your strengths. Good afternoon. You have to still understand your strengths and not confuse your audience as well.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. There's something in my mind. So in doing like the research for this interview, we heard like you've spoken about it before, but like you have in the past you did a job for Mercedes Benz where
Yeah.
where you showed up. I think they were looking for your boss, your guy. Can you talk about that story for people that haven't heard it yet?
Oh yeah. So it was when I was in school, and after the mayor, I was the school photographer, and I was able to play around and create a lot of content myself. Do you understand? And I was able to build my portfolio to a certain point. And when I got that call that day, it was from a school friend. Well, we were not that close, and she was like, "Oh, I work for Mercedes Benz and all of that." And all of that. I'm like, "Oh, okay, nice." And when she said, "Oh," I think she reached out on like a Tuesday, and she was like, "Oh, the meeting has to be on Thursday." So I went for the meeting, and I waited in the reception for so long. And when they finally came down, they said, "Oh, the team is waiting for you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, nice." And okay, when the person came down first, she told the receptionist, "Oh, there's a Fola Stag waiting." And the receptionist was like, "Oh, that's him." And the way she looked back, like, huh? And then she was like, "Oh, you are the Fola Stag." I think she even said, "Oh, you are smaller than I expected." Oh, okay, interesting. And then we got to the office, and she entered before me, and I entered and I closed the door. And everybody was still looking around like, okay, so where's the Fola Stag? Let him come in. And she was like, oh, yeah, that is the Fola Stag. And I could see on their faces like, are you impersonating him? So, yeah, but and you know how these clients get, they try to test you and, throw questions at you. But luckily, because I've been in spaces like that and I've been able to build my portfolio, I've been able to build my knowledge, I was able to defend myself of all the questions. And immediately that day, they were like, okay, sign the check straight up. And they gave me like a huge bunch of cash, or what will I call it? And I'm like, what? And even on the day of the shoot, I was supposed to shoot 5 people. I ended up shooting 11 people because it was fantastic. Thank you. Let me use that word.
Okay, and so did you charge properly for a brand of that caliber?
So at that time, I was still struggling with pricing. I mean, even now, I feel like a lot of us still struggle with pricing. But at that time, I really shot myself in the leg a lot. But then it was great that I had that experience, and I was able to build that and add it to my portfolio.
When you finished university, right? I feel like how did you transition so quick into like those huge jobs? Like you're working with Ramba, you're shooting the female basketball team. Is your networking just like that amazing that you're just able to like transition so easily? Because some people, it takes the whole career before they reach those levels.
Oh yeah, so there was a time I was shooting for a sports brand, and they were the sponsors of the female basketball team because I had a 9 to 5, because I had a fine money. So I was doing that, and in the process as well, a friend of mine used to shoot, used to shoot for Maven, and then he needed a creative director. So yeah, on that project for Rema, I was the creative director and lights director, and that was how I was able to do that as well.
Okay, sure. Makes sense. And last but not least, like, what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done? Fola the legend. Like, what do you want? What do you want to be remembered for?
What do I want to be remembered for? What do I want to be remembered for?
Because you want to be remembered.
Well, yeah, I would like to be remembered. Yeah. What do I want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered as that stress-free guy, man. I want to be remembered as that unproblematic person. I know it's a bit difficult, but I want to be remembered as somebody who did all he could. You know, and not just do it. I want to be remembered for doing everything I do, and I do it exceedingly well. I don't want to do it and leave it halfway. I don't want to do it and leave it half baked. So I want to make sure I am remembered as somebody who does what he does and does it well, and also impacts other people with it while doing it.
Mm-hmm. Do you is food photography or acting part of that legacy, or do you want to be remembered for something else completely different?
Well, I honestly don't even know what might come up tomorrow, but then I am trying my best to make sure everything I do now, I am inculcating that into it.
Makes sense. So Fola, I want to say a very, very big thank you. And so, guys, if you have any questions for Fola, please type them now. And so, in the meantime, we're going to just while that's happening. Well, just one last thing, right? I see that you enter a lot of competitions, right? Like, is that like obviously on purpose, but like you enter more than like I was going to say like at first I was going to say is that on purpose, but obviously you enter competitions more than the average. Like you enter a lot of competitions. So is that like a strategy to like come up? Like what's the thought process behind that?
I think now that you called it a strategy, I'll agree that it was a strategy. Although at that moment I was just trying my hands on, things that, okay, I felt that I could do. Do you understand? Oh yeah, I see this and I feel like, I can do it. And let me just do it as well. And honestly, that has also opened doors for me because I've been able to collaborate with some of the brands that I took part in their competitions as well.
So would you advise other photographers or photographers in general to enter any competition that they can put their hands on?
Yeah, if they have the time, if they have the knowledge, and if they don't mind. I mean, there's no harm in trying, honestly. There's no harm in trying because I try to look at things beyond now. So if I'm looking at it now, I am also looking at the future part of it now. What will this give me at the end of the day? So yeah, that's it.
Makes sense. All right, Fola, and that right there is a wrap. Thank you, Fola, for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
I know you have a job behind you. And so before you go, do you want to promote anything, an upcoming project, upcoming hangout, workshop, new acting?
Well, I think the only thing I would like to promote or just talk about is the hangout, probably in November, most likely in November. We did one last year, so most likely again this year, but we're working on it with Chef Daring.
Like what type of hangout? Just like a photography, like a food photography hangout, or just hangout in general?
Food, like a brunch, basically.
Okay, cool. And talking about that, you've been like doing these type of maybe hangouts or workshops or classes since Babcock University. It's been many years since you've been teaching. Is that like a second passion of yours?
I feel like if I end up not doing anything at the end of everything, say if I resign or if I plan to resign, I think I'll just end up becoming like a teacher.
Fola Stag, the teacher. I mean, Very interesting class.
Thanks, man.
So my name is Tunde. This is another episode of N.P.H Live Photography Conversations. You can watch or listen to this episode and all our future episodes on YouTube and Spotify. Last but not least, I want to thank Fola for coming, and we will see you guys later.